Well, I've been asked to tell a little bit about my run-in with a hippopotamus years ago on safari in East Africa. Uh, my friend Bob Kemp and I, Bwana Bob, were driving around Kenya, and we were camping this night in the Great Rift Valley on the shores of Lake Baringo. Some of the lakes down to the bottom of the valley are saline alkali and really only support flamingos. But Baringo is a freshwater lake and has a much more varied fauna: hippos, crocodiles, pelicans, cormorants. Very nice. The campground was in sort of open woodlands, typical African savanna, and we were about 300 yards from the lake. We couldn't actually see the water from where we were, but we could hear the hippos down there making their little hippo sounds. And we had our usual evening meal of cold canned food, and climbed into our tents. We each had a little one-man nylon tent, sort of a bicycle tent, we'd call it, sort of high enough to sit up in the front, tapering down to maybe 18 inches in the back, sort of slip into it, sort of coffin-shaped. Is that foreshadowing? I'm not sure. Anyway, we turned in. It was a warm night, so I tied my rainfly back, and I laid there looking out through the mosquito netting at the African night, and pretty soon I was asleep. I don't know what woke me up. You call it sixth sense. Maybe I felt a vibration to the ground. Maybe I heard the animals approaching. In any case, I was suddenly wide awake, on my hands and knees, looking out in the night, and coming at me, close, very close, because I had my glasses off. I couldn't see very far, but I could see this perfectly well. Two hippopotami, two hippopotamuses, two hippopotami, two hippos, coming straight at me, one chasing the other. I don't know, was it a male after a male after a female? Were they just playing around? But they were running fast for such a big animal and coming straight at me. And I knew instinctively, I knew instantly, that here in the dark night, just basically starlit, my small dark blue tent was not going to be noticed by these animals in their rush. So we butted heads through the mosquito netting, the hippo and I, forehead to snout, pow. I went flying into the back of the tent. The hippos sort of veered. They didn't have to, but they did veer off, and they sort of carried the front of the tent with them. The front tent pegs went flying, the tent pole went flying, but the rear end stayed staked down, and they sort of dragged me along, twisted me up inside, dragged the tent along, twisting me up inside like a pretzel, and they were gone. So, sound asleep on my back, wide awake on my hands and knees. Hey, bow. They're gone. That's how long it took. Almost instantly, Bob was out of his tent, and I remember the air was still full of dust because his flashlight made a cone of lit up a cone of dust in the air from the hippos passing. I was getting untwisted, and so I could finally see out, and Bob says, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Where this hippo and I had, butted heads, the hippo had left through the mosquito. He'd left me through the mosquito net. He left me all gooey, and it could have been hippo drool, or it could have been algae from the lake. I don't know. It was thick, viscous. So Bob says, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And my instant response was, "I've been slimed," which I thought was pretty good for a sport. Under the circumstances. Under the circumstances. We got the tent unwound. I got out of there. We found my glasses. They were not broken. We found the tent poles and the stakes, and they were all usable. We put the tent back together, staked it down. I got back inside and went to sleep. In the morning, I was a little, sore, but otherwise fine. You could see on the tent, mosquito netting, a big muddy footprint up on the mosquito netting that would have been right over the spot where my head was when I was still asleep. If I hadn't instantly woken up.
True story, because I have actually seen the footprint of the hippo, and I was a keeper at the Toledo Zoo and took care of the hippos, and so I can verify it. It was a real hippo footprint on the top of his tent.
I've gotten on my hands and knees. One of those hippos, that hippo would have stepped on my head and popped it like a grape. And that's my close encounter on the shores of Lake Baringo, though those many years ago. So stay home and watch those nature documentaries. It's much safer.